views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this episode are that of the guest and host and do not necessarily reflect the values of sponsors or other associated organizations. Welcome to the Parental Compass by Family Education and Support Services. I am your host, Bobby Williams. Subscribe to the podcast. We want you to know when we're dropping new episodes. Also, if you're new to the show, check out our back catalog. We have over 150 episodes for you. We've made it. We are at part 3 of 3 on our series about community-activated prevention. The idea that before someone hits a crisis point where they are dealing with life-threatening or major struggles, there is a chance to intervene. There's a chance to prevent this from even happening. Our guest is Capra Parker, Senior Community Prevention Specialist. Capetra has worked with communities across the country to do this type of work. We're going to get into a conversation about coalitions, communities coming together, understanding themselves, finding what they need to do to start implementing prevention strategies, and putting it into action. This was just a really fun way to wrap up this conversation. Let's get into it. For someone who maybe missed the first 2 episodes, can you briefly explain what prevention means in the way that we're talking about it?
Sure. All right. So we're talking about it in the terms of prevention science, this idea of reducing risk factors and enhancing protection within our community for young people to ultimately result in healthy behaviors.
We covered this a little bit on the first episode, but I want to revisit some of what does prevention look like on a broader community level?
When I think about prevention on a broader community level, we're thinking about it think of it as a portfolio. You want to have a variety of activities going on to really promote prevention. Coalitions are a great vehicle for being able to do that because it brings people together from a variety of backgrounds and interests, all for the greater good of thinking about young people's development.
Something you've talked about too is advocacy. How can something like a organization like Family Education and Support Services, how can they promote these ideas to real decision makers? What does that look like?
It looks like telling the stories of your community is one way. Whether that is looking at the data and communicating those needs to those who are decision makers is a really powerful thing. But it also looks like too providing education to caregivers and families. It's almost as if you are like this intermediary between all these different worlds, if you will, of helping bridge the gap. I feel like that's what I'm really good is like bridging the gap from research to practice. Because researchers, they talk over here about one thing and then community have a whole different language and we get to be in the middle and kind of help fuse those worlds together.
What are common gaps you've seen? You've worked in a lot of different communities doing this. Are there things that are often overlooked?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The biggest one that you'll see is funding available. I mean, not having enough to do what it takes. Another one could be like reach and saturation. So maybe you're only really targeting or focusing on a small portion of the community, and the community at large is not receiving prevention. Another one is not having what we would consider tested and effective programs as a part of your portfolio. So not having those evidence-based curriculums available as an offering of that. Sometimes it's your laws and your norms are a gap that we're not sending the right messaging. We're not enforcing our laws around certain things. All of those are gaps that we can see.
How important is this idea of belonging when it relates to prevention? How do you define belonging and what does it look like and how does it relate?
Yeah, belonging is this sense of connection, this sense of you have value, you have a role, and that you play. And I think in prevention, we see it at multiple levels. We see young people needing to belong, whether it's in the school setting or the family or the community, but feeling a part of it is just a big piece. You also see it at the coalition level. That when you're bringing these different sectors together, that they feel like they have a role and a contribution that they can make and that it's being utilized well, that's also a piece of having a collective group that is strong. So it happens at different tiers in the community, but it is really, it's almost like a soft skill in a way that it can be undervalued, but it can go a long way in getting those tangible technical steps completed.
When we're talking about all this is it's a lot of energy, and our communities are under stress. We're under stress for our time. Everything feels like there's not enough. So how do you do that with all these factors?
Yes. I always tell the communities that I'm supporting, first and foremost, what we are doing is life work, not grant work. So, this idea that it's easy to get on a grant cycle mentality of like, well, we got funding to do this, so we're going to do this, but here's some more funding and switching. But this is life work. We're talking about people's lives here. We're talking about young people's development. And so it is the mental shift of settling in for the ride. And it truly is. It's knowing those expectations that it is hard work, it is long work, and it's also about looking for those quick wins along the way. So you might not have moved the data yet on let's go with suicide. Maybe you haven't moved that data as quickly and as fast and as deeply as you wanted to yet. But thinking about the wins that are getting you there. Are people having conversations? Are groups working together that haven't been working together before? Identifying and calling out those quick wins can be really helpful in the longevity that it takes when we're all feeling really burdened and burnt out.
We may not see the results for another 10 years or something, but to know something's happening is still good.
Yeah, and I think about it exactly in that 10-year span of like that is one set of results, but what are the other wins before we get to that one set? That mental shift can be really helpful.
So we create this community coalition. What are the elements that make a good, effective, strong community coalition?
Yeah, there's six things that this one, this comes back to researchers have really studied coalitions and kind of what makes a coalition successful. And what they've nailed down is that one, you're efficient. Number two, there's cohesion. Number three, there's opportunities for participation. Number four, there's skill building. Five, goal directedness, and six, there are diverse partners. So when I'm coaching and supporting coalitions, I ask them to think about these six things and to think through what are they doing well in these different areas to kind of take it chunk by chunk.
So let's break it down to these individual pieces then. Efficient. Does that mean just we're meeting in an hour and we're going to get as much done as we can? Or what does efficient look like?
Efficient is means you're getting meaningful things done in a timely manner. That's how I would describe it. So sometimes you come to a meeting and it's just a report out of everything everyone has done. That's not really the best use of people's time. Are we solving problems? Are we addressing challenges? And do we are we able to see the progress that we're making? Those are usually markers of an efficient coalition.
It seems so often in meetings, so many meetings are like that, where it's like, let's get to the goals, let's get to the action here, let's do shorter introductions and get moving.
I think there is that shift. One of the things we think about is like objective focus meetings of really thinking around like when the participants walk away from this meeting, what will they actively be able to say that they've done? And what we have found is that has resulted in higher retention and also people being willing to kind of be more involved because they see like, I have a role to play here.
And then you talk about cohesion. What does that look like?
Cohesion is, the ability to work together, the ability to be on the same page. It kind of overlaps a little bit with goal directedness, but it really is about this. ability to work together.
And then opportunities, what do opportunities look like?
In a coalition, that looks a variety of ways, but it's making sure that people feel like they have a role to play and that they're valuable. So those opportunities for participation is like it's keeping it from the person who's the convener doing all of the work and just coming to say this is what I did over the last month. But opportunities like, hey, here's a task that we need done, and people feel like they can use their skill sets to get it done.
So, what are the different skills that you need then? Like, what can different people bring to the group that's important skill wise?
When we're thinking about prevention, oh man, sometimes it's working with data, sometimes it's leveraging relationships. Maybe there's a program you're trying to implement and you want to have it at a certain space and you someone on the coalition has the connections for that. Um, Getting resources. It could be someone's a really strong writer and they want to help contribute to telling the story of young people in the community or the successes of the coalition. I just think there are so many skills within a community. And one of the things I always encourage coordinators to do or coalition organizers to do is to stop and think about what are the skills that you see in your community and how can you leverage them? How can you call them to the front?
And then again, these can always just get into broad strokes, but you have to have goals. So, what's an example of a goal and how you work towards it?
In the prevention world, the goal could be to reduce the number of young people who are saying they're experiencing family conflict. I mean, that we're all moving towards that. Everything we do, all decisions are made with that in mind. It's very different than we're just doing whatever grant came our way, right? So it's being very clear about what are the risks, what are the protective factors, where do they sit currently in our community, and where do we want them to be?
It sounds like part of what you're saying almost is like there's this mission statement, and is what we're doing related to and moving towards that mission statement?
Absolutely. We want to avoid mission drift. Some people may have their own motives and reasons why they're at the table. And so having that mission we can point everybody to allows us to not be distracted, which ultimately allows us to be more efficient and productive.
I think one of the biggest things then is diverse partners. What does it mean to have a diverse coalition, and how do you get more people involved to be part of the coalition?
Yes, okay, that's a really good question. First, thinking about who makes up your community. How do you describe your community? How do you describe the demographics of your community is typically the first step. Who's going to be most impacted by the decisions that are made by this coalition? And then making sure there's representation for them on your community coalition is key. So it's kind of this idea of nothing for us without us that comes into play when you're talking about having diverse partners and then also making sure that all of the different sectors that make up your community are also represented. Because like I don't know which episode now I said this, but this idea that it's not just schools and caregivers who are responsible for young people. Everybody in the community has a role to play, and so making sure that they're a part of the coalition is key.
Something that you've mentioned that's interesting is including businesses or business people. Why is that an important piece?
They're staples in the community. I mean, if you're a business, these young people are likely your future employees, for one, and don't you want great employees working at your business? They're your future patrons of your business. When your community is thriving, your business is thriving. I mean, all of these are reasons to take investment in what's happening with young people.
So often, something that really stood out to me when COVID happened was how everyone was concerned about the people around them and are you going to get COVID from somebody? And it brought home this idea that our collective health is our individual health. And that seems like the same is true when it comes to communities.
Absolutely. I mean, there's power in numbers. And I think community activated prevention is another way of illustrating this idea that there's power in numbers. We can do much more when we're all working together than if I was the only one in my community caring about the thousands of youth, that are here.
So we get this great community coalition. Everyone is working well together. We have diverse partnerships, we have goals. But then what does that look like in terms of advocacy and making a difference with lawmakers or the broader community? Like, how can you be a good advocate as a coalition?
I think we talked about this idea of bringing data to your leaders in your community. One of the other things too is to engage leaders as well in the coalition work is something that's really been found to be effective and promote prevention and create change. I always describe it as if like you could get out here with all your ideas and then you could go make your demands to your lawmakers and your systems leaders, and they might feel a little caught off guard. But what if instead we brought them along simultaneously with caregivers in the community and other members of the community to make decisions together? I've been in some situations where one of the roles of the coalition was helping the community understand the mandates and the parameters in which systems, when I say systems, I mean like juvenile justice, public health, law enforcement, things of that nature, school districts are working within to help communities kind of figure out a good meeting. Because you don't want your community making demands that just like legally can't be met, and so that's an exercise in frustration. So coalitions really can create a space for the worlds to kind of collide and to find something that's meaningful and effective.
Bringing them in, getting the buy-in on it. Like, this is our collective idea, and you're part of this community too. Where the rubber hits the road, though, is always the funding. It's just how do you get dollars behind it? I know we've talked about it,
Yeah.
and it sounds like the data is a huge piece. What's the most compelling argument you have for put dollars behind this?
I think data does move dollars. I know data moves dollars, but also relationships and early buy in can move dollars as well. So, having this collaborative process where decisions are made can probably increase the likelihood of getting your idea funded. Um, it's the long term game, but I think we cannot underestimate the power of relationships, and telling the stories and really illustrating the true needs.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, and thank you for being so generous with your time. What is the closing message that you want to leave to families, to decision makers, to coalitions, to the community at large? What do you want us to walk away with here?
It's going to sound cliche, but I truly believe it and I truly mean it. And it is that we all have a role that we can play and we all can make a difference. And we are better together. So sometimes it can feel like, that's just what they say on movies. But like, no, in real life, I've seen it. When we come together collectively, oh, how powerful we can be.
Thank you so much, Capetra Parker.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Capetra Parker, Senior Community Prevention Specialist. And thank you to you, the audience. Thank you for sticking with us for these last 3 episodes. I hope through this process you've learned about community activated prevention, why it matters, and how you can start taking action. This isn't just something to listen to and think about for a second. This is something to take, run with, and make change. This has been the Parental Compass by Family Education and Support Services. I am Bobby Williams. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next episode. Peace.